Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. This is not the Ramon Foster Show. This is the Southside Beat. That on the fly changing right there with the graphics. My name is Chris Halicke. Joining me is Greg Macafee here. It's been a while since we've been on here.
It's been a minute, that is for sure. I think we were in Latrobe, right?
Well, I did
Yeah,
one
you've
here
done.
from
Yeah.
I did one from Texas Den here.
Okay.
But no, it was yeah, it's been a while. It's definitely been a while. So but hey, like we have certain things that come up, I know like you were obviously like covering stuff, I was covering stuff, and so but we're obviously going to be getting back to doing this somewhat normally, and we're going to have to figure out a time so that we're not having to switch times like every day. If we have to switch to 4 Eastern, then that's what we'll do. That might be better with the way it just depends on what time practices are going to be, because this is obviously the Southside Beat. We want to be talking about what's going on with the team, and and then we have the Ramon show that goes on twice a week. Once the season begins, those will both be at 3 Eastern. So maybe switching to 4 o'clock is the way to do it. We'll have to kind of talk about that. But for now, for right now, man, like I mean, we're coming up on the last practice was done before the final preseason game. Final preseason game is Saturday in Detroit. Just overall thoughts of what you've seen from the team so far, because I don't think we've really gotten your thoughts off of what happened in the last preseason game before we can really kind of turn the page to what things are going to look like in Detroit.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of concern, I think, with the offense and just kind of how it's looked through the first two preseason games, and I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line and protecting the quarterback. I mean, getting sacked 4 times. Russell Wilson got sacked 3 times, or no, I think it was more than 4. But Russell Wilson got sacked 3 times and 3. And I mean, there's just some question marks there, and how that's going to figure out. Obviously, Broderick Jones has gotten a lot of that criticism so far through the first, throughout this week. DK had a chance to talk to him earlier, and if you haven't already, I would go to the feed and I would look at the video that DK posted from, I believe it was Tuesday after practice. Broderick's answer was exactly kind of what you want to hear. He completely owned up to the mistakes and everything like that. And really just didn't make any excuses, and he's ready to go. But obviously there's still some question marks. I mean, there's been question marks throughout the training camp, and I think there's still things to answer in this last game. I mean, you and I have talked about it throughout today, just what we need to see and everything like that. But it's the offensive line. It's going downfield with the offense. It's what this offense is actually going to look like when the regular season starts, because obviously Arthur Smith isn't putting everything out there. He said earlier this week that when Russell Wilson was in there, he pulled it back a little bit, just to protect Russell and, just in case of injury and things like that. But I mean, there's definitely still some question marks to answer headed into this week. That's for sure. Technical difficulties. So yeah, I mean, I guess well, there he goes, Chris. See you later, man. I'm sure he'll be right back, but yeah, I think he's got something to do with his AirPods. But yeah, so I mean, throughout the beginning of this week, it's been a lot of talking through those offensive issues. Obviously, Arthur Smith talked on Tuesday, and he spoke a lot about trying to get into the end zone this upcoming week and against the Lions and everything like that. He's not necessarily worried. When we talked to Russell Wilson yesterday, Pat Fryermuth, they all said there's no concern. They all said they're just waiting for the work on the practice field to translate into the stadium. So we'll see how that kind of plays out this week. I think we'll get a lot better of a picture of what it's going to look like. They might open it up a little bit, but we'll see. But they're definitely
Is this thing on?
There you go.
What's hilarious is that as soon as I pulled up the settings, it was showing that my mic was going through. I'm like,
yeah,
what the heck is going on? So I have no idea, man. Robert saying, somebody, another reporter saying Russell Wilson is the number one quarterback. Yeah, I've been saying that too. You don't have to go somewhere else to get that information. I've been saying that all along too. And actually kind of won that whole thing about Zack Frazier becoming the number one center before that happened. So yeah, no, like Russ is the number one quarterback, but obviously, when we talk about getting into what the concerns throughout the preseason, everything else that's going on, there is a level of concern, and but I don't think it's necessarily about like schematics or anything like that. It's kind of difficult to describe because, like I saw a comment that Jordan made here, says we don't have enough quarterback to get use out of Pickens and Ayuk. Like, should Ayuk be traded here? Like, I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't think I'm not trying to like be a Mike Tomlin apologist here because that's not what I'm doing at all. But it is very, very true that, like, listen, we have not really gotten a fair evaluation of the quarterbacks, especially Russ, because Russ was admittedly limited in his first preseason game. And even with Justin, like, Justin has at least played more and has shown more on film, some good things, some bad things. It's not been great with him. It's not been bad with him. I would like to see Justin maybe grip it and rip it. The thing with Justin that I'm seeing on film is that he's not seeing certain things fast, like quickly enough. That's the thing that's concerning about me. When it comes to Russ, like I don't even think that you can really truly evaluate it because shoot, man, like at least 2 of the 3 times he was sacked, it wasn't on him. Even though you have people who are like, oh, well, he's holding the ball too long. Like, dude, you can talk about whether, he was holding the ball for too long or whatever it was, man. But both times, man, Broderick got absolutely destroyed.
I mean, and when Arthur Smith talked earlier this week, he said, like, when you're getting beat inside, like off the ball quickly, it's a one-on-one issue. And when most of the sacks were those one-on-one issues, but there were a few that were, a couple things combined together. But yeah, it's a thing they got to fix, and it's something that's got to come together. That's just, you got to win your matchup at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, Rick says JT O'Sullivan's video on Fields was ... the truth. I do agree, and if you haven't seen JT O'Sullivan's quarterback or QB school on YouTube, it's definitely worth your time. He has a great way of breaking down film. But I saw the same exact thing. A lot of those like deep end breaking routes and everything like that. It's just it's not there. Like his drop is fine. Everything's fine, but he's not seeing it and trusting what his eyes are seeing. And that really is kind of the next evolution for Justin Fields, because if he again can not want to just immediately want to start taking off, he's got a lot of Kenny Pickett in him when it comes to how often he wants to bail the pocket. The difference is that Justin has elite athleticism and elite speed at the quarterback position, so he can make things happen way more than Kenny Pickett can outside the pocket because of his arm talent, because of his legs, everything like that. But you need to see Justin take that next step in terms of seeing and executing from inside the pocket. Now, I asked Justin today how he feels. He is like, because he's had a whole training camp, he's had 2 preseason games under his belt, and I've been like, okay, how do you feel like your skill set fits in Arthur's offense? And the main thing that he says is that Arthur's offense is flexible. So like if Russ is in there, it's flexible to Russ. If he's in there, it's flexible to him, which I think is really cool for a coordinator to do, because a lot of the time it does seem like the coordinator makes the quarterback like have to like, compromise and play within that system. But if you have Arthur who knows that, okay, we're going to have like set plays that both guys can run, but then we also have some plays that are going to be more for Justin, some plays that are more for Russ. And I think you're going to see that play out in preseason too, maybe even in this final preseason game, because the one thing that I think we need to see, because Mike Tomlin talked about it, he called it a dry rehearsal this week. Like, we need to see something. And I asked multiple players about that, and I don't want to put too much emphasis on preseason. And this is pretty much going to be what I'm writing about later today. We need to see something Saturday. There has to be something that they put on the field that gives them some momentum going into the season.
Yeah. Oh, no, 100%. They got to put something together. I mean, multiple players talked about needing to get into the end zone on Saturday. They haven't been able to do so throughout the preseason so far. It's just been a couple field goals. They need to find a way to get in the end zone. They need to find a way to play efficient football, move the ball up and down the field, string a couple drives together and figure it out. But they need to put something together this week to kind of inspire a little bit of optimism heading into the regular season for sure.
Really quick on the injury front, attention fans says I missed last show, but Nate Herbig injury mentioned. He's on IR, so he's done for the season. His season's over, so it is Zack Frazier. Now, I reported in Friday Insider, again, this is before anybody else was reporting anything on Zack Frazier. I reported in Friday Insider that the Steelers were going to be going with Zack Frazier week 1 no matter what. No matter what happened. I was told that literally the day before Herbig suffered his injury at training camp. And I was told, like, Frazier is going to be the guy week 1. Like, they're not going to say it now. They're not going to update the depth chart now, but he's going to be the guy week 1. And that was the plan. And then obviously Herbig gets injured, and that obviously just makes it obvious at that point. But they were already going to be going with Zack Frazier regardless. And I think that just goes to show how much they believe in this kid, how much he's grown throughout the course of training camp and 2 preseason games. I thought he's put a lot more good on film than bad. Still some room to grow. There's still some growing pains, and I think there's going to be growing pains at the beginning of the season. But and Jay Moods pretty much says it here. He says he's our best center. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, James Daniels was talking yesterday or on Tuesday, and just to kind of about how he's seen Zack Frazier improve. And Zack Frazier has already started barking orders at the line. He's telling what the rest of the guys what to do. He's filling into that position seamlessly, and I think a lot of that has to do with just Herbig kind of bringing him along as well. I mean, I think we're discounting the role that he played in this position battle of, this was a guy who's played guard throughout his career. He moved over to center for training camp, and he's kind of just been bringing Frazier along and preparing him for, to step into the role, I think. Yeah,
Herbig did have some center experience. It's not much. He's predominantly a guard.
Yeah,
but Mike Tomlin, he's not going to just throw a center or throw a rookie in there at center. He's going to Herbig's had some center experience, so we'll make him the starting center. I was like, no, come on. But see, this point keeps coming back here. Like, Joshua Dawes brings it up. If they can anoint Kendrick Green to a starter, give him 53, I think Frazier can have the same treatment. Well, I think Mike Tomlin learned his lesson from that because you haven't seen it happen since. Like, we have not, let's not just continue to use that because when you look over the course of Mike Tomlin's body of work as Steelers head coach, rookies typically don't get that treatment. There are certain guys that end up getting that treatment. Marquise Pouncey got that treatment. Home run there. Kendrick Green got that treatment. Swing and a miss. Violent swing and a miss. Much like one of the 16 that I saw in Texas yesterday. Violent swing and miss on Kendrick Green. But overall, that has not been the norm for Mike Tomlin to just hand a rookie a job and everything. So and because of what happened with Kendrick Green, I don't see it really happening again anytime soon, if ever again, unless it's like the Steelers somehow are picking top 5 and they get an obvious starter right away.
Yeah.
But outside of that, man, like for example, like there's a lot. based off of either what you've seen in preseason or Russ's injury or anything like that, you could really just talk about how maybe Justin Fields deserves to be the starting quarterback because of all the reps he's gotten. He's the younger guy. His ceiling is probably higher at this point than Russ's. The risk is higher too, but still, like you could make a case for it, but that's not going to happen. Russ is the guy. But I really, just to go back to that point, I really do think, and I asked a number of offensive players, and they all said the same thing. Like, they need to go out there. They need to do something on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
They have to move the ball down the field. They need to put the ball in the end zone. Like, they need to score touchdowns, and probably more than one. They need to score touchdowns and ultimately actually win the game. And this is a very good Detroit football team too. So, but they need to be able to, they got to do something Saturday. They got to, again, whether you want to say it's for momentum or whatever, they got to do something.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Jordan asks, how has Patterson looked? And I would assume that's Cordell Patterson. I mean, he's going to, like, while Jalen Warren's out, he's going to film, or he's going to, sorry, I'm reading comments as I'm talking. He's going to go right in as the number 2 guy. So I think he's good in that role. I think that Cordell Patterson is going to, he's a very different runner than Jalen Warren, but I think overall, I thought he's well suited for that type of role as a number 2 or number 3.
Yeah, and no, 100%. He's looked quick. The handoffs he's gotten and things like that. He's looked quick.
Yeah, and that dude's big. I don't know. I don't think people really understand how big he is. Like, you can look. It's another one of those situations. Like, I remember the first time I saw Paul Skeens in person. Like, you see the measurables on paper, and then you get next to him, and you're like, oh, that's why he can throw 102 over and over again, because he's a massive human being. Cordell Patterson, it's like, how are you a running back? Like, I understand he came in as a receiver, but even for a receiver, he's massive. He's just a massive person.
Yeah, he's thick.
So it's like, I would not want to have to get in front of him. I'll put it that way. It's not like Derrick Henry, like, monster size, but that dude, he's a big dude.
Yeah.
It's really funny. All right, so we do need to kind of get to this too. We don't have to go down the Brandon Ayuk rabbit hole, or should I say, the never end, the bottomless pit that is the Ayuk discussions. But Steeler Girl here asks, any word on a wide receiver? There's nothing new when it comes to any trades or anything like that. Specifically with Ayuk, there's nothing new there. It is still a waiting game. The Steelers are still waiting that out. I do expect overall, and we've already seen it happen. I've already said, like I expect there to be a flurry of trades happen between now and next Tuesday, whenever that, and that's the cut down day. So the roster will go from 90 to 53. So I do expect there to be a flurry of trades. The Steelers could very well be involved in that, whether that is a trade for a wide receiver, whatever it is. It wouldn't surprise me if the Steelers were involved in that, because there are other positions they probably need to address. Slot corner might be one of them. They might need a gunner. Not saying that they're going to be pulling off trades for that. That might be something that they wait for, like, cut down day. But if they could possibly get a guy like a slot corner, like, legit, and it's a trade that makes sense, like, why not? You know, so I do think that I do. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not going to make any bold predictions and say, oh, yes, the Steelers are definitely going to be making the trade, but it makes a lot of sense. Any other positions that you think that the Steelers need to be trading for, or at least addressing when it comes to what's going to be happening over the next few days?
I mean, obviously that, we're talking about the wide receivers. We're talking about slot corner. With Dylan Cook's injury, you said it wasn't serious. Maybe O-line.
He told me it wasn't serious.
Yeah. If something like that pops up, I mean, I would say wide receiver and that slot corner are the two that kind of stand out to me the most, that would be more likely to be filled by a trade rather than waiting for cut down day to see who comes off teams and things like that.
Yeah, I do think that, and Mark says we need 2 gunners possibly. It's very possible. I do think I do think one of the guys that they have internally right now can probably do it. Possibly Des Fitzpatrick.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some good reps. He's got the ability to go down the field. Ryan Watts. I think Ryan Watts can be a little too aggressive sometimes, but either way, he's a guy who can at least get downfield. I think they have some guys that can still compete, but if they can add a more experienced guy in that role, that'll just make the punt coverage even better because they already have a legit punter now. If they can get themselves a really good gunner, that'll really help matters as well. And then Mr. CJ Jr. asks about defensive line depth, and J Moods comes back and says, I think our D line is looking good. Honestly, the defensive line isn't really much of a concern for me right now because if you have Cam Hayward and Larry Ogunjobi and Keanu Benton, okay, there's your starting three. That's a solid starting three. It's not bad at all. Then Dean Lowry, okay, veteran guy, can help push the pocket. DeMarvin Leal's looks really good.
Yep.
Montravius Adams has had a good preseason. They got some guys that are really interesting. Is it a position to say oh, they've got a top 5 defensive line? Of course not. I'm not going to say that. Yeah. But is it solid? Is it a decent position? Is it better than we thought it was 2 or 3 months ago? Yes, I do think that 100%.
Yeah, agreed. I think you got to throw Loudermilk into there too. I think he's had a pretty good training camp as well.
They got some decisions to make.
Yeah. And then Leal is a guy who's kind of moved around a little bit. I mean, he's kind of, he's learning the outside linebacker position too. So he provides that versatility. And, he's also been on the kickoff team. So he's a guy that's kind of all over the place.
Here's a good point, and this is when we're talking about schematics. Joshua Dobbs says, I think the big nickel can hide our slot cornerback hole until Sutton returns. He's referring to the 3 safety package that the Steelers like to roll out when they're running their big nickel. So instead of for that 5th defensive back in a nickel defense, instead of it being a cornerback, they have a 3rd safety on the field, which that means Deshaun Elliott moves down into the box or in the slot, and then KZ and Minka will play further back. The problem with that is that you do not want Deshaun Elliott having to cover the speedy wide receivers. Yeah. On your 3rd down and 3rd and medium, 3rd and longs, and you're rolling out, if you want to roll the nickel defense, running out 3 safeties is not a good idea. The 3 safety package can be great for wanting to run out of the nickel, but still be able to defend the run pretty well. Because obviously when the Steelers run out of the nickel, they really only have 2 down linemen. I understand the 2 edge guys like Watt and Highsmith are considered defensive linemen at that point, but they're really not. You got 2 main guys up front because Watt and Highsmith are split out so far outside that their nickel, it's interesting. And when you run with the 3 safeties, you can defend that. It's the best of both worlds when it comes to defending the pass and defending the run, but you can't run with it all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't even think you can run with it even half the time that you put your nickel package out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they really do have to have a slot corner. Whether it's Beanie Bishop, whether it's an outside hire, whoever it is, they need to have an actual slot corner because if it were for a game or 2, okay. If Sutton were suspended for 2 games, okay, maybe they can get away with it. For 8 games, half the season, I don't think so. I would disagree with that. I think I found Colin Cowherd's burner account. Colin Cowherd's burner account. Grown men who wear their hats backwards look foolish. Have you seen that bit, right? The backwards.
No, I haven't.
Okay. So I think it was Carson Wentz or somebody. I don't remember who it was, but it was interesting. He wore his hat backwards and Colin Cowherd just completely shredded him. It's that's not what a franchise quarterback does. It's just oh boy. Okay. So this is what we're going to be. This is what we've come to. We're going to start, attacking somebody's character because of the way that they like to wear a hat. It's interesting. And Vegas does come in with a really good thing here for those who don't have time to get their hair done and everything. Hats mess with the camera and the lighting. Here, I'll turn it around. That's fine. You can see half of my face. That's fine with me. I'll do that. I don't care. I don't care. I like wearing my hat forward. I like wearing it backward. I don't care. It's funny. Good question here from Mark. Greg and Chris, Leal has been playing much better this summer. Is he a lock to make the 53? I don't know if I would quite call it a lock.
Yeah.
But he's made a really good case for it.
That's kind of where I've been at with it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a lock. I think he's on the bubble. But he's had a really good training camp. He came in great shape. He's all over the place. He's doing whatever. He's one of those guys that is just literally doing whatever he can to make the roster, to make the 53 man. And Terrell Austin said he's really stuck out. Earlier this week he said Leal has really stuck out, and he's had a great camp. And I think he's one of those guys that the Steelers are gonna have to make a decision about, because he's not like one of those top guys. He's a depth guy that can do a bunch of different things. I think he's made a great case. It just kind of it's gonna be one of those decisions.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be interesting. It might even be a harder decision than having to try to get Southside beat hats.
Yeah,
that would be that's a pretty, not that it's a difficult decision, but hey, the more you guys like and share this show, the better chances we have of getting hats. I'll put it that way. But and Spice Creations comes in and says Loudermilk might get cut. Like Loudermilk might get cut. Leal might get cut. Like there's only I think 7 is probably the most amount of defensive linemen that they're going to be putting on this roster. And you've already got 3 locks for sure. And then you can start kind of debating between the other 4 spots. And I don't see a situation in which Dean Lowry doesn't. Well, I wouldn't quite put Lowry there yet, but Montravius Adams I think is pretty close to a lock.
He's played really well.
And then after that, like you get you talk about 3 guys. Like is it Lowry, Leal? I'm trying to remember who I had for my 7. But and then like there's Logan Lee too, like the 6th round pick. He's had some good moments throughout both training camp and preseason. He can contribute on special teams, and he can also be an emergency long snapper. Like I don't know if you saw that during training camp, but he snapped quite often to Cameron Johnston. So I think. Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't want to give up on Logan Lee either. I don't think he's just an automatic, like he's definitely not making it.
Yeah, there's just, it's not like there's a ton of like top end talent, but it's those depth guys that you want to have around that can kind of, do a bunch of different things. We've talked about versatility a million times. I feel like Leal is one of those guys. I feel like Logan Lee is one of those guys. And they're making the best case possible for themselves.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you got some people like Marcus saying Adams is a lock. I do think I wouldn't necessarily put him at like, I am definitely going to be like, I'm betting my life savings that he's going to be on the roster, but I feel really, really good about it. I would, if you have to make me pick a 4th lock, then yeah, it would be Adams. He has been, and listen, like it's awesome to see him build off of what he was doing last season before he got injured midseason, because that was the best we had seen Montravius Adams look, and then he got injured, and it's just like, man, is he gonna? Sometimes injuries can derail things, and they never find their groove again. He's looked like the same guy that we saw before he got injured last season. So, here's to hoping that, because if that's the case, again, that solidifies depth there. You don't have to worry about it as much, and again, you can really. The slot corner and receiver are pretty much the 2 main areas you need to look for. And then, probably you need to get yourselves a gunner, but outside of those things. Okay. We're near the end of the time for the show. again, typically, like during the season, the show. Well, we have one more show to do. We can do a prediction today and a prediction tomorrow. We're not going to do a game prediction because it's preseason, so it really doesn't matter. If the Steelers lose and they go 0-3, the sky is not falling, people.
Yeah.
But is there something? Okay, we'll do a prediction tomorrow, like a bold prediction.
Yeah.
And is there one particular thing that you think outside of like an actual specific thing that you need to see this offense do in this game? Like one specific, whether it's one play, whether it's a series, whether it's just they need to get like something specific, like a Fields throw down the middle or a Russ bomb or anything that you really need to see happen on this offense.
Russ talked about it a little bit yesterday. That's something that I would like to see is, attacks down the field. Let's hit, George Pickens with a shot down the field. Let's hit Van Jefferson with a shot down the field. Let's see them stretch defenses to create those kind of underneath routes. And I think that will really open things up a lot. I mean, like we've talked about, I don't know how much they're going to open up the playbook, but I would like to see them attack the Lions down the field.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I'm going to give two quick ones, and they're both quarterback centric. Russ needs to, whether it's the plays that are built in or no matter what, I don't want to see Russ have to check the ball down more than twice.
Yeah.
Like whether he plays 4 series, whatever it is, I don't want to see him have to check the ball down more. Now that's partially on the offensive line. Not like obviously if he, is just getting from his first read to a second read and he already has guys in his lap and you got to check it down. That's kind of, I'll count that. But so part of that relies on the offensive line, but I don't want to see Russ just default to check downs. And then when it comes to Justin, I want to see him be able to make some throws that are in rhythm on time. Yeah. It's not just about like Jerry saying, get the ball out fast. It's about getting the ball out on time for the concept that's called, because there are some, like, for example, there was a play where they were running, there was a deep in, and that's just it's a route you have to let develop.
Yeah.
Like even if like quarterback gets to their fifth step on the drop, you've got to like hitch before you can really rip it. And so, especially if there's a guy in your first window or whatever it is, like there are certain routes that you have to let develop. So it's not just about 1, 2, 3, let it go. I just want to see Fields at least, I would say at least twice, hit a good throw in rhythm on time. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Those are the two things. And Luis says it here. Offensive line needs to block better. They do. That's a big part of it too, because a lot of the complaints with the quarterback stuff, part of that is on the offensive line not playing well in the preseason so far. So
yeah, I mean, I would like to see them like win those group battles across the offensive line. But I think the biggest thing to keep an eye on is those one-on-one situations. Is Broderick Jones taking guys out of the play? Is everyone winning their one-on-one matchups when they have them? I think that's the big thing to watch, because that's kind of where it's been a little iffy.
There was a quote from Mike Tomlin. I don't have it right in front of me, but it is going to be pretty much the basis of the column that I'll be writing, that'll be going up later. It's about execution. It's not necessarily about execution of schematics or the system. It's mainly about guys beating the guy across from them.
Yeah,
that's what these guys need to do. That's what they need to do Saturday. And if they do that more often than not, they should win. That's usually the way football goes. Sometimes it doesn't go that way. But those are the type of losses that are easier to deal with. Whenever you played a really good game and you still lost, those are the losses that are at least easier to take, because at least you knew that you did things that you pretty much outplayed them. We haven't seen that yet. The Steelers have been outplayed in their first 2 preseason games. Yeah. They need to outplay the Lions in this game. That's what I would say. All righty. Well, thank you guys so much for joining the show today. We will do a show tomorrow. We'll just go ahead and plan for 3:00 Eastern tomorrow. That's our typical show time. As we get closer to the season, especially when the Ramon show goes to 2 days a week, we will probably have to come up with a new time, because we don't want to be like, okay, 3 days a week it's this time and 2 days a week it's this time. We just probably need to choose a time, whether that's 4 p.m. or whatever it is. But also, what time the Steelers practice, that has a big role in that too. So because we have to do the show, and it's not like last year where Corey was covering Steelers while I'm in Texas, and I can hop on the show anytime that I want. It's not like that. Greg and I are both going to be covering the team. So we'll figure things out. Part of that is also dependent on the team and their practice schedule. So either way, thank you guys for joining today. For tuning in. If you didn't watch live, still thank you for listening. Really appreciate your support. We'll be back tomorrow. We will talk more about this preseason game. Maybe we'll be talking about a trade that happens. I'm not talking about Brandon Ayuk. I'm just talking about any kind of trade, because trades are picking up right now ahead of the cut down day. So maybe we'll have some news to talk about, whatever it is. Either way, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you on the flippity flip.
See you later, guys.